Good morning, church family. It is Monday morning, meaning it's time for some Motivational Monday. My name is Christopher Donnell. I'm the pastor here at Urbana United Methodist Church, and we're so glad you're joining in with us today. Hopefully your weekend was awesome and you spent some time enjoying the great weather that we had. You got outside. Hopefully you enjoyed worship somewhere. It's always important to be part of a church community, whether you're part of ours or somewhere else. But it's back to Monday morning and back to the grind. And want to encourage you this morning. Maybe you have heard that we can do all things through Christ. And this is a truth that the Apostle Paul speaks to in Philippians chapter 4. And he says that specifically in verses 13. But sometimes this scripture can be taken a bit out of context when it says, I can do all things through Christ. Sometimes the list of all things looks more like our own desires than maybe what God has for us. And so I want to read a little bit before 13 this morning. I want to read 10 through 14 for you today. This is what Paul says to the church in Philippi, the Philippians. I rejoice greatly in the Lord. At last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content in whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And so you see there's a little bit more backstory than to the I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yes, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, but it may be really hard things and it could be really great things. It does not necessarily mean it's going to be a long list of our to-do lists, but it could be more of our circumstances that come our way, whether we can help them or not. Paul talks about being hungry or well-fed, whether he was homeless or with home, in whether he had companions or not, whether he was isolated or had community. He learned to be content in all things. So maybe what we could also say here is I can be content in all things through Christ who strengthens us. Meaning in every situation, just like the author, the writer of Ecclesiastes talks about a time for mourning and a time for dancing, a time for weeping, a time for rejoicing, a time for war, a time for peace, a time for life, a time for death. Just as those complicated emotions come in one hand and in the other is hope and life, and the other is death and depression maybe. To be able to hold both those things in tension means we can be content in all things. We like to be able to have the joy through Christ who strengthens us, and we like to look at our list that we want to accomplish and say, I God, you can do all of those things for me because you said so in verses 13 in chapter 4 of Philippians. But really, God is talking about through the Apostle Paul here is to say that we need to be content in him through all things. And so that's why fasting is important. That's why withdrawing from things is important. That's why taking breaks and refocusing our attention, social media, fast, whatever it is for you, to withdraw, to take away, to remind ourselves that it is God who provides. It is not our own doings. Everything's been a gift from him to us. And then to withdraw from things allows us to refocus and recenter our attention on the one who provides, the one who gives us that strength to be content in all situations. So this week, maybe think about some things that allow you to be content, and maybe there's some situations that rub up against your contentness where you are feeling entitled, or maybe you feel like privileged about something or your own accomplished, or you feel proud. And so God is asking us to refocus and say, God, it is you who provides. You are the one who brings the content in our life. It is you who does all these things in us. So I can be content in all things through him who gives us strength. Have a great week.